And welcome to another episode of the Tar Heels Insider Podcast right here on SI. I am your host, Grant Sachere, bringing you all the latest news in regards to UNC sports. We're getting closer and closer to the season starting up. Of course, it starts on Labor Day, which is, less than a week and a half away. So I'm really excited for that. You guys should too. We got a lot of great content coming out in regards to football, a lot of it, right? We got, of course, fall camp wrapped up. I still have some articles I want to release from fall camp, of course. Of course, we're going to have some basketball as well. As I mentioned in the last pod, Hubert Davis will be speaking on Thursday. That will be a large part of the discussion on Thursday. Can't wait for that, of course. And, of course, next week officially kicks off game week. Yes, I do. Yes, they do play on a Monday, and that's kind of a weird thing on Labor Day. But this upcoming Monday, of course, they don't play it this upcoming Monday. But this upcoming Monday, they're going to have Bill Belichick speaking and a couple of players. I think on Wednesday, from talking to a couple of people that work in the SCD's office, they're going to have a thing on Wednesday where the coordinators and the players are going to speak. So we're going to have a whole lot of content throughout the week for you guys, and I'm really excited. Finally, sports are here. Of course, soccer has already kicked off their season for both men's and women's, and there's a lot of excitement around that. But, man, it's finally here. The wait's finally over, and I can't wait to finally watch some football. Of course, tomorrow we got a couple of good games, especially Farmageddon between Kansas State and Iowa State, two top 25 teams. So really, really excited for that. But, talking about North Carolina football here, because that's what's going to dominate the discussion for the next month or so. I mean, of course, basketball will kind of start picking up steam once you get to late September, early October, of course. But the large bit of discussion is going to be around football. Let's not kid ourselves, right? We got a big game coming up here in Chapel Hill. But one of my biggest takeaways from fall camp, I'm going to release an article about this later on, about my biggest takeaways from fall camp. But this is kind of a little sneak peek, right? One of my biggest takeaways from fall camp, and really just observing Belichick and, just everything's talked about. And also, of course, we got the news that they're going to, at some point in the season, the throwback uniforms from when Lawrence Taylor played, that's going to be worn sometime this season. It could be the very first game of the year. When I went there the last time, when I went to the media date on Wednesday, usually, every media days, they usually have two uniforms. The one that was worn in the late 90s, early 2000s, North Carolina haven't won a good bit in the last couple of years under Mac. And then on to Belichick's left-hand shoulder, when he's on the podium, you had the uniforms from the 1980 teams, from when Lawrence Taylor played. They went 11-1, and that was to his left-hand shoulder. Yesterday wasn't there. Could that be an indicator that they could be wearing it against TCU? Who knows? But they will wear it at some point this season. But that kind of shows, how much Bill Belichick respects the past. You hear Belichick talking about, there's always clips of him talking to, for example, Wes Welker, and he's talking about some player who played in the 50s or 60s. And he's just a historian. He loves football. If UNC would let him teach a class about the history of football or the history of the fullback and line snapper position, dude, he will do it. He'll find ways to talk about that for hours upon hours if he could. No joke. And every time you hear him in press conferences, he's always mentioned how much he admired LT. Of course, Lawrence Taylor. LT. I'm talking about Lawrence Taylor, not LaDainian Tomlinson. They have the same nickname, and I know that gets confused at times. But he always says, "Yeah, I love LT. I love Lawrence Taylor." Of course, Lawrence Taylor played for Bill Belichick. But the thing is also anytime he mentions mentions Lawrence Taylor, he would mention he'll mention some of the players from the 80s, including D. Hardison, and he'll mention Greg Ellis. He will mention a lot of different players that have been great players from the past for North Carolina. And North Carolina has 3 Pro Football Hall of Famers. Lawrence Taylor, of course, Julius Peppers, and then also Chris Hamburger, who I didn't not know who that was. I'm not a North Carolina fan. Like I said, I've only been here for a month covering the North Carolina Tar Heels, so I don't really know I'm still learning the history. Right, I've learned a lot. I've read a lot of books. I've read a lot of articles before we got here. Listened to a lot of podcasts. You name it. And now, of course, I know a lot about North Carolina basketball. I never was I would say I was a fan of North Carolina basketball, but I'm a huge college basketball fan. I've read a book about the North Carolina Duke rivalry before. I've said before, like, I love the Duke North Carolina rivalry, greatest college sports rivalry in all sports. Talk about the college basketball side, of course, but to me, it's even better than Alabama and Auburn, just because Alabama's won a gazillion national championships. Auburn's only won 2, but they claimed 7 national titles. But that's here and there. I'm not even going to discuss that, the foolishness over there in Auburn, Alabama. But he wants the history of the program to be preserved. He wants his players to learn about the history of North Carolina. I mean, like I said, every time you go to a press conference, he mentions Lawrence Taylor or somebody who played in the past. You go ACC Network, he'll mention all the great players that played for North Carolina past in the 70s and 80s. North Carolina has a tradition. They do have tradition. And I'm going to show you this clip right here of him making the team sing Happy Birthday for Chris Hamburger. By the way, Chris Hamburger, for you guys don't know who he is, he played for North Carolina in the early 60s. He was an 18th round pick. So that's when the NFL had, a gazillion rounds. Of course, now they have 7, but back then he used to have like 20, I think. And he was he's a 9-time Pro Bowler, 5-time first-team All-Pro, second-team All-Pro in 1974. He was a 6-time All-Pro. 5 of those were first team. He's considered to be one of the 80 greatest Redskins, now Commanders, when he was awarded. He's a part of the Washington Commanders Ring of Fame. He was a 2-time first-team All-ACC linebacker for the Tar Heels. He is a stud. This guy was a legit, bona fide Pro Football Hall of Famer. Of course, I mentioned his ACC records as well, but he was one of the best linebackers when he played in the NFL. And so here is Bill Belichick and the team singing Happy Birthday to Chris Hamburger.
All right, today is a special day where there are 3 North Carolina players in the NFL Hall of Fame. Lawrence Taylor, Julius Peppers, and Chris Hamburger. Chris Hamburger, 2-time All-ACC, 5-time All-Pro. What round was he drafted in? 18th. What? 18th. Yes, the 18th round. That was a long day. Actually, a 22 round. 18th. He was the 18th rounder. Played both ways.
Hey, Chris. 1, 2, 3.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Chris. Happy birthday to you.
Yeah. 84. Let's go. Break it down.
So, yeah, there you have it. So that was them celebrating Chris Hamburger's birthday. And, that's what I'm saying. Like, Bill Belichick's a historian. Like, I don't think a lot of North Carolina fans even know who Chris Hamburger is. Right? I'm talking about the younger side of fans. But, like, my point is he's not like a household name like a Lawrence Taylor or Julius Peppers was. Right? And he's teaching his players the history of North Carolina football. Like, I understand that North Carolina football will always be second fiddle to basketball. I mean, that's the way things are. I mean, the basketball team's great. And great's an understatement. They've won 6 national championships, right? Only UCLA and Kentucky have won more, right? Well, and they're tied, and then they're tied with UConn, of course, because UConn's won 6, and they've won 6 since I've been. I was born in '99. UConn won its first national championship in 1999. They've won in 6 national championships since I've been born. Like, that's crazy, right? And under 3 different coaches, by the way. They won 3 under Jim Calhoun. They won 1 under Kevin Ollie, and then they've won 2 back-to-back, of course, under Dan Hurley. But UNC, and going back to kind of pivot back to UNC, but UNC basketball is great in its own right. Look, you have to acknowledge it that it's going to play second fiddle. But football is the breadwinner in college sports, right? North Carolina is investing more and more and more in football, right? Yes, there is a 65-35. I think it was like a 65, like a 35, and like a 5 and a 5 for football, basketball, and then like women's basketball and the baseball, of course. But there's going to be putting a lot more in basketball than, some other programs around the country because basketball is king in North Carolina. But North Carolina football has a lot of tradition, guys. Like, I just want to put this in perspective for you guys. So they have 3 Pro Football Hall of Famers: Lawrence Taylor, Chris Hamburger, Julius Peppers. I already discussed that. But then you have 5 players in the College Football Hall of Fame with Charlie Justice, Don McCauley, Art Weiner, Dre Bly, who, by the way, Dre Bly, I was looking up and I did something on like the North Carolina's Mount Rushmore. I actually put him on there because he's a 3-time first-team All-ACC, and he was a 3-time All-American. Also, I think he had like 11 interceptions in one season too. He was insane. And, of course, Harris Barton. And then you had 3 coaches: Jim Tatum, Carl Snavely, and Mac Brown. And really, for the College Football Hall of Fame, Julius Peppers is going to be on there eventually. Well, I'm surprised Lawrence Taylor's not on there. But, of course, Mac Brown was inducted as, the head coach of Texas. But Mac Brown is also the winningest head coach in North Carolina history. So there's something to put that in perspective. Like in the last, 2 years, you've had 2 first-rounders with Drake May and Amarian Hampton. You've had, over 30 1,000-yard rushers. Like, you have history at North Carolina, right? You have history. 30. So a running back has rushed for over a running back has rushed for 1,000 yards 32 times in this history of North Carolina. And then they've also had multiple in one season, right? It's happened twice. Actually, three times. Four. 1974 with Jim Bederson and Mike Boyd. It happened again in 1980 with Amos Lawrence and Kelvin Bryant. It happened in and it happened in 2020 with Michael Carter and Javonte Williams. So it happened 3 different times, y'all. Like that's insane. How many other programs have that? Then on top of that, you have to list all the All-Americans that they have. Since the establishment of North Carolina's team in 1888, North Carolina has had 68 players honored a total of 85 times as an All-American for their performance on the field of play. And the most recent All-American, of course, came in 2013. It's been a little while, but it came in 2013 with Eric Gebron and Ryan Switzer. The answer is some guys after that, right? I don't think that's right. Because Landon Turner was a first-team All-American, and then actually, Amarian Hampton was an All-American? I think this might be first team. Hold on. I thought Amarian Hampton. I think he was an All-American. Yeah, he was an All-American. Yeah. But that's what I'm saying. Like, North Carolina has a rich tradition. Yes, they may not have the tradition of Clemson and Miami and Florida State and even some respects Virginia Tech, right? But they've had success. They have guys in Canton. They have guys inducted to the College Football Hall of Fame. They have a lot of players inducted to the North Carolina Sports Hall of Fame. I mean, think about it. All the great players that come through this program, it does have history. And you have to embrace it. And that's something that that Bill Belichick has done because he is a football historian. He loves talking about the game of football. He loves talking about the different positions on the football field and the history behind them and how they changed over time. He loves talking about players that played in the 50s because that's who he is. He is I won't say a football savant, but he is a scholar of the game of football, not like game plans and stuff like that, but also just like the history of the sport. That's who he is. And I think, the great thing about Bill Belichick is that I don't know how successful he's going to be in Chapel Hill. I don't know if he's going to lead North Carolina to an ACC championship or a national championship or even to a winning season, right? But what I do know is that he's making the university embrace his football team. North Carolina has invested more and more in this football team since Bill Belichick has been here. There's a lot of evidence that proves that. I don't have to even go over it. We've all seen it. And because of Bill Belichick's presence, he's teaching everybody, including his own players, the history of North Carolina, even though he landed on a jet here back in last December. That's the type of guy you want leading your program. Somebody who's a scholar, somebody who would teach you the history of the university. And I think Bill Belichick's done a better job of teaching you about the history of the football program in North Carolina better than a lot of people have. Even more so than the guys who've been here for a very long time. Just even the university itself is historic, right? I mean, the university was founded in 1795. We didn't even approach the 19th century yet. It was founded in 1795. That's 6 years after the end of the Revolutionary War. George Washington was still alive. This is an historic program that's part of a historic university. You have to embrace tradition, even if you don't have a lot of it, right? And North Carolina does have a lot more tradition in a lot of different places, right? I'll give a perfect example. Southern Miss. Southern Miss, yes, they've had a lot. They had a lot of success in the 90s and 2000s. I mean, for a while, Southern Miss is one of the best mid-major programs in the country. But the one thing Southern Miss still hangs their hat on is the fact that Brett Favre played there. You don't think Northern Iowa is hanging their hat on the fact that Kurt Warner played there? I mean, think of all the programs, like the MAC schools. You don't think Kent State's hanging their hat on the fact that Nick Saban played there, and I think Jack Lambert, one of the most feared linebackers to ever play the game of football. You don't think they're hanging their hat on that? Kent State's it doesn't have great tradition at all. Matter of fact, they might be historically one of the worst mid-major programs in the history of college football. And that's just a mid-major. You can make the case for all of its history. Right? Kent State, by the way, 3 different head coaches went to Kent State and played there. Lou Holtz, Gary Pinkel, and Nick Saban. And then they also had, who played there, Jack Lambert, Hall of Famer, James Harrison, borderline Hall of Famer. He has a strong case to make the Hall of Fame. Julian Edelman, who played for Belichick, who had a long career in the NFL, was one of Tom Brady's favorite targets and most reliable targets. He's not a Hall of Fame player, but everyone knows who he is. When you mention Julian Edelman, oh yeah, I know Julian Edelman. Josh Cribbs, one of the greatest returners in NFL history. I mean, look at the list of players. And guess who also went to Kent State? Even though he didn't play football, but guess who also went to Kent State? Antonio Gates. Yet Kent State is one of the worst college football programs of all time, but they got Hall of Famers and coaches who are in the Hall of Fame that played for Kent State. They're hanging their hat on that. And North Carolina, I'm not sure what they've been doing or whatever, because you have to hang your hat on tradition. I think for the first time in a little while, North Carolina is hanging on to a tradition of football. They are trying, they want to have tradition, well, not want to have, they are embracing the past and teaching the future about that said, the present and future about that said past. And that's something that I don't think the program has done in a very, very long time. Very long time. And like I said, I don't know if Belichick things are going to work out in North Carolina. I think it could. I think I really do. I'm not sure if it's going to be like they're going to win the AC title or they're going to win a national title. I don't know what's going to happen. But what I do know is that all of the pauses around Belichick being here, not only just the hype around it and the excitement around it, but also Belichick teaching everyone that North Carolina does have tradition in this program. It's not just basketball. It's not just soccer. It's not just lacrosse. It's not just field hockey. A lot of programs, not just baseball. There's a lot of tradition athletically in North Carolina. And you can't ignore the fact that its football program has tradition too. With that being said, my name is Grant Sachere. I am the lead beat writer for North Carolina Tar Heels on SI. You can follow me on Twitter at Sachere Grant, last name, first name. And if you have a hard time trying to spell my last name, just pull it to Tony C's, to Tony Sachere's. We call it Tony C's in Louisiana, where I'm from. Pull it to Tony Sachere's, look at it. Oh, that's how you spell it. And that gives you a general idea. But then also make sure to follow at Tar Heels on SI, at Tar Heels on SI on Twitter. And also make sure to like our Facebook page as well. Also, whether you're watching this on our website or you're watching this on YouTube, make sure to go check out our website at si.com/college/UNC. That's where you can find all the latest on UNC athletics. Me and Jeremiah Artacho have been trying to drop as much of the latest news as possible. There's a lot of stuff coming through, so make sure to go check that out. Thank you guys so much for watching the episode, and I'll see you guys next time.